Maybe it took you years, maybe it cost something real from your life, time or relationships or the version of yourself that existed before the pursuit began. However, you eventually got the thing that you wanted. When that thing arrived, when the thing you had organized and sacrificed your entire life around finally landed in your life and finally became yours, something happened that you were never prepared for and have probably never fully admitted to anyone but yourself. You wanted something else. That was not the thing you were hunting for. And it wasn't immediately that you felt that feeling. But within weeks, maybe even days, the satisfaction of attaining that object or that goal had started to dissolve in its place and instead was now a new shape. It was now the shape of wanting. It was wanting a new destination or wanting a new version of the future that would finally, this time, feel enough for you. It wasn't the failure of gratitude, and it wasn't ingratitude or weakness or a character flaw that you had to correct. It was the will doing the exact thing that the will does. And Arthur Schopenhauer understood this with such a precision that most people will find it so uncomfortable to sit with for the first time that they actually encounter it. Now, Schopenhauer's argument was not that desire itself was bad, but instead that desire is insatiable by design. It is impossible to please. The will, which was his word for the blind driving force underneath all human motivation, does not have any destination, and it never will. It doesn't want a specific thing, nor does it rest when it gets there. What it does is want, and that is it. It's continually wanting, and it's structurally wanting. The specific object of the desire is almost irrelevant. Maybe the job, and maybe the relationship, maybe the achievement, or maybe just the body or the recognition, or from anything. It can range from everything to anything, because the moment any of them are actually achieved or obtained, the will simply relocate to a new goal. It will find a new object and the whole cycle will begin again. Arthur described the human life as a pendulum swinging between desire and boredom. It would just go back and forth no matter what. When you want something and you don't have it, you will suffer the pain of lacking. When you finally get it, the wanting will briefly subside, and then in its place will arrive boredom. The absence of wanting, which turns out to feel like emptiness rather than peace, that is the exact feeling that he describes. And therefore the pendulum will swing back and forth continually. A new desire will form and the cycle will again continue. However, this isn't pessimism for its own sake. What it is the description of a mechanism that most people are just running on without even knowing that they're running on it. The person who achieved what they wanted and felt nothing upon the arrival of it is not a broken person. They are just the most honest version of themselves. They are the most honest version of everyone around them, because most people will never actually get close enough to the thing that they want to feel the dissolution when it arrives to them. They will spend their whole lives in the wanting phase, which at least does have the energy of pursuit, which is the forward motion of a life, oriented towards something. However, the arrival is the moment that the mechanism is exposed. The moment that the story this desire was telling you, which is that it would be enough or feel like you're fulfilled, runs out of road. That is that moment. Now, Schopenhauer watched this happen to about every single person around him and then concluded that the only exit from the cycle itself was not better desires or more discipline or working harder towards your goals, but instead the temporary suspension of the will itself entirely. It was through art, it was through philosophy, it was through the rare moments where a person is so fully absorbed in their own life and in the present and something outside of them, bigger than them, that the wanting goes quiet finally. And it doesn't have to be a permanent fix. It cannot even be a permanent change. The will always return, and in those intervals, however, the moment of genuine absorption and genuine presence and genuine contact with something larger than the next thing you need, that is where the pendulum will stop. It will stop swinging and you'll finally settle in the middle. Now, here's what this actually means for you. Here's how you can maybe not fix your life, but here's how you can actually act upon this. Now, the release from Schopenhauer's cycle is not the achievement of the right desire. It is the recognition that desire itself is the mechanism, not the path. The next thing and the next best thing will never ever do what it tells you that it will, or what you're asking it to do. Not because you're choosing anything wrong, but instead simply because of the fact that the will was never designed to be satisfied. What it was designed to move. Which means the question is not what you want to want next. It is to be so fully inside that the wanting goes quiet. It's to be so present that you cannot even think about the will because you're so focused right now. Again, not forever, not as a permanent state, but just long enough to remember the fact that the intervals between desires are not emptiness to be filled with something as quickly as possible. They are the only moments that you are not being run by something else. Find what silences the pendulum and even it briefly. That is the only single answer that Schopenhauer thought was honest.